I'm in. Oh,
Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner, and I've conducted over 28,000 coaching sessions with seven-figure entrepreneurs. Also joining us, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
Monday.
I want to call this Significance Monday.
Significance.
That's what we're going to talk about today. Like the
All right.
theme of our show is shifting from success to significance. You know how
I love that.
you're trying to climb this ladder. Maybe it's a corporate ladder. It's this, and you get all the way to the top. Then you realize your ladder is leaning up against the wrong building,
Mm.
right? And you get that thing that you said you've always wanted. You get that achievement, and you're like, yeah, there's got to be more. I'm not. Something's missing.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about what's missing. Today we're going to talk about how do you shift from success, which is really just about you mostly and things that you want to accomplish, to significance, which is about impacting the lives of others in a positive way. Yeah, I think when you're in that realm of significance, that's really when you start to come alive. And our guest is, man, I can't think of a greater example of someone who's made that shift, but we'll give him a formal introduction here in just a second. But for those of you, and Ted, I didn't warn Ken of this all the time we were sitting backstage, but I'll go ahead and give him the official warning now. This is not your everyday podcast.
It is not. It is not, Ken. It's not.
No. We try to do things a little different here on the 30-minute hour. I definitely appreciate those of you watching us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We've also got people that are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of those types of podcasting platforms. So again, today we're going to talk about shifting from success to significance. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ken. Let's go ahead and bring him on to the party here, Ted. We got to
come on in, Ken. Come on in, Ken. Have a seat.
I love
Don't
it.
you
Thank
feel more
you.
welcome
Thank you.
now that Ted did that?
That's it. That's it.
I feel welcome.
All right. So he left his successful corporate job behind to dedicate his life to giving real people and real conversations a place to be heard. He's armed with a jar full of questions that he's developed over 3 years of self-reflection. So he's constantly on the road interviewing strangers in 111 plus different cities across the nation. And he's the host of the Jar podcast. And he's someone who's definitely made that shift from success to significance. So please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour podcast, Ken Stearns.
Eric, thank you so much. Yes, Ted. Thank you guys. Thanks very much for the warm welcome and the lovely introduction. I feel a little guilty, when you were talking about the success to significance, and it ends up being for other people, as you said. But I didn't start out with the intention of it being for other people. I mean, I did, to hear other people's stories, but I thought for sure it was another career, my third act. It was a new career for me. And also this would happen, or by way of this, it was my third career. And both are pure. But in the end, what I found out was it wasn't about me. I wasn't even in the equation. I mean, I'm benefiting greatly, tremendously, but it's not about me at all. And, and I'm merely a vehicle for people's stories and what's out there. So it's been interesting when you were saying that. I'm like, yeah, that is kind of why I did it, but also I did it for me.
Yeah.
And then I found out it's like I said, I found out it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Now this is. I want to really unpack this. Let's kind of go. Let's start from the beginning. I mean, because your background is fascinating. So, like, you're at the University of South Carolina. You're an
Yeah.
accounting major.
Yes.
So,
It's true.
tell me what
It's
I mean.
true.
The obvious answer to my upcoming question. I know the obvious answer to my upcoming question. I'm just going to add. I want you to explain it.
Yeah,
So
what happened?
what were you thinking? What was your career plan or vision when you were at the University of South Carolina?
I had a real clear vision. My dad was a businessman. So I think, that was always probably in the back. So I get a business school. That's a no-brainer. I end up in this fraternity, and after the first semester, I had no idea what the heck's going on. I'm 18, I'm just in class and I'm going to these classes. And I noticed in January, all these seniors that were accounting majors were already had jobs by February. By March, they were already, even some of them were kind of working already, part-time or something. And the next year, the next January, all the marketing majors were still hanging around the fraternity. And the accountants, you hadn't seen those guys in 12 months. They just had been taken away off the planet. So I knew if you want to get a job, you become an accounting major. And I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what the career was about, nothing. So anyway, I ground through it. I got a degree in accounting, and I ended up in LA doing accounting work. And I distinctly remember, great job. I'm making good money, actually great money for the role. But this sales guy was going out, and I was reimbursing his expenses. And I could see this guy was having the time of his life, and he was making a fatter. I wrote him a bonus check one time, bigger than my monthly salary. My wife was 6 months pregnant, and I quit.
Wow.
No insurance, quit. And I quit for a 60% less salary job, a sales job, selling calculators and copiers up and down Wilshire Boulevard in LA. So I did that till I got fired because I sucked. And, and then I got another one, and and that job went under. And then there's a couple, and I should have got fired from this insurance job I started. I had an insurance job, and I it's just another side story, but I should have been fired. And somehow I got lucky, and I got saved for a week, and then I sold something, and then I got good. Then I was finally getting my momentum, and that led me through a couple of other accounting jobs to stay away from too much of that part of the drama. I ended up with an opportunity saw an ad. I had a very specific background in insurance, a very, very unique sales approach and experience. And I saw an ad in the early internet for an opportunity to go to Asia and do that work. Very shortly after that, I was on a plane with my family. We made the decision, took the job, and signed a 2-year contract. And last January, 22 years later, I came back. So I spent the last 20 years working in about 15 different countries, living in 5, Hong Kong, Thailand, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and having a chance to live and work over in Asia for 20 plus years as an insurance executive. And it was an amazing career. And it was, you could say, as you said, Eric, pretty successful. I can look back and say, and I did good work as well for people. I was a good boss in a lot of places and left everybody and everything better than I found it, I feel. And somewhere along the way, though, that was not who I was going to be at 70. And I knew, I have this, I call it, visioneering in a way, stealing the Disney thing. And I also horizon thinking. I use horizon thinking more. It's beyond where you can see, right? Seeing up to that point you can't, and then imagining past that and kind of building those kind of visions and trying to search to see what am I going to do in my third act? Who am I going to be when I'm 70, when I'm 80? What am I going to be about? I don't want to be some glory days guy, back in the day when I was in 8. Well, let me tell you about the time I was in Bangkok and we ordered these noodles, and nobody likes that guy. I mean, I'm sure he's liked, but like that's I don't want to be that guy. I want to be dynamic and have a story from yesterday that's just as interesting as any other story. And I don't know how it happened. And this is the magic. I do know what I did. I don't know how it happened. I know I was intentional about certain things and doing things for myself and opening up myself to the creativity, the opportunities. So I started really doing a lot of street photography. And that's very artistic in a way of movement and looking at life through a lens and imagining what that, where's that frame going to be perfect and interesting to people. I picked up guitar at 52. I bought a guitar and, that was it's not something you do usually at 52. You don't start guitar. But I did it with the purpose of trying for 2 years and getting a teacher and not giving up for 2 years. So I'm going to buy a guitar and I'm going to do this for 2 years for myself. That led me back to writing a book I had started. It's a very weird thing, but I used the draft notes that I had from a book draft, and I used those to write a song. I'd never written a song, never imagined I'd be a songwriter, but I used these words I'd written in this book, and I pulled those out with the teacher one day, and we sat down and pulled the song out of the words. We made lyrics out of the words, and I had one more chapter of the book that had enough words in it to steal. We made another song, and I was out of words, and I didn't know how to write songs, but I knew how to write. So I was like, I got to finish this book so I can write more songs. That's the only thing that makes sense.
So okay, all right. So your life is going on at this point. You're this successful insurance executive.
Yeah, all that's happening on the side.
Okay, so what was it that all of a sudden now you have this desire to learn the guitar? You have this desire to write the book. What prompted that?
I don't know. I had something inside me really was just saying, you got to think about what's next. And so to start experimenting and play with things to see what, I wanted to be intentional about maybe it's even finding out who is Ken. Because I've played this. I used to say I'm an actor, right? At work, you're in a lot of ways. I played an actor. I played a role, a corporate role, a particular kind of role, and that was me. My personality came out, and I was individual in that role, but I was still playing somebody else's part. Because when I left, they'd fill the role with the new actor.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Eric, you know the story, right? This is the corporate life, right? When anybody listening, when you leave, the machine will march on, and you'll have a gold watch, maybe, or a nice memory, or you'll have a nice goodbye lunch. But 5 weeks later, you're almost erased from the corporate memory. So I think I wanted to make sure I had my own life when I say retired, but when I got to the age when I could step away or find that exit opportunity, or create one, because it's either going to come to you, right, or you're going to create it, or you're going to react.
Exactly, it's forced upon you. So I'm curious. You said something that I really want to unpack a little bit. You talk about the difference from like visionary thinking versus horizon thinking. Can you talk more about that? What's the difference? Like, do you have tools to do horizon thinking? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's a steal from the vision. The visionary is, I think, to me, is more here where you can see and touch and feel, right? It's in this imaginary, this creation space. And for me, I've used this kind of what I call horizon thinking and strategy development and stuff, which is how far can you see clearly? Right. We can see strategy wise and market wise, we can see pretty good out, 100 yards. And then it gets a little blurry because you're not there yet. And the closer you get, decisions are easier because information's more clear. The choices are more obvious. So, the further you go out, the more you have to, become a visionary, right? You have to say, okay, if this is what I can see here, and next 100 yards is this, what does a mile look like?
Hmm.
What are those things? And so, as a team or in teamwork for work, it's great to do. But also as an individual, I use it a lot on my career, and doing this, planning the jar and the travel, was really trying to putting myself physically transporting myself out past the horizon and standing in that place that I can't see. But imagine yourself there, right? It's that, there you are. And what do you see? And you can create that future, right? Because you're creating it in your mind. And you're saying, when I get there, it'll look like this. Weirdest thing is, I'm traveling around the country. I've been to 67 cities. I've met about 220 people. I've been to about 150, 170 people's homes. And I've met all kind of people. You can imagine, from the nicest house to the roughest part of the neighborhood, the hood, in trailers and all kinds of places. I've never been surprised. Everywhere I've gone, I felt absolutely comfortable because I've been through this 1,000 times in my mind before I ever started. It was the weirdest thing. The funniest part was, the part that really messed up with my head was, I wrote the questions when I wrote the questions, right? So I have this idea, 444 questions in this jar that we take to people and sit with them in their home, and they pull one question at a time. And when I wrote the questions, I wrote them from a very particular space, right? A place, my own life experience, and the intention of the question. And a weird thing happened. People actually had their own interpretation of the words. I knew they'd answer the question based on their life experience, but I didn't think they'd interpret the question based on their life experience. So I went from having, these 444 questions to 4 million or 40 billion questions, because everybody's got their own version of what the question means. And so it's one surprise I did get, even though I put myself out there. It was something I missed. But it's a great technique. It's horizon thinking.
So, all right. So we have horizon thinking, and so on the podcast, let's kind of set it up so everybody understands. We have this podcast, the Jar Podcast. You interview these people at different places, and the whole idea behind the show is you pull a question out of the jar and you ask it to them, and they just answer it. Is that?
Yep. Yeah. And so I'll give you a little more background. So as the project itself is to visit 111 American cities and interview 444 people with this jar that's got the 400 questions inside. And there's just 12 topics: your yesterdays, your todays, your tomorrows. That's the self, right? Everything inside your battlefield, and everybody listening. I mean, these are the tough parts as an executive, managing your own headspace. And then interpersonal skills. And this is like personal, but also very corporate structure, perfect stuff: acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. If you take those things into work, you'll be so much happier. I wish I knew this 24 months ago. I might have stayed in corporate, right? I might have enjoyed myself a lot more. So interpersonal, these are things I can accept who you are. I can accept your position. I may not agree with you, for example, right? But I can understand how you got there. So acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. And then as a leader, the more senior you become and how you look at the organization as a whole, we're also, humanity. So the opposite, right? Outside the corporate world, it's humanity, but inside it's your corporate ecosystem. And that's love, karma, and service. So if you open your work up in a place where it's loving, I mean, it's obviously to an extent, right? You got to use the word in the right corporate way, but love, treating people employees like you want to be treated, treating teams like you want other teams to treat each other, management to treat staff like they'd want to be treated. It's different decision making. And then being in service to your staff, right? Being there to take care of them. And so because they're the machine. If you take care of that machine, the work is going to go great. So it's being in service to your teams. And the last part of the book was faith, hope, and prayer. And these are not as transferable in the corporate world, a little bit more difficult, but they can still be a pretty good guide. And those are your relationships with, whatever you think would be, why we're here on this earth. Is there a creator, not a creator? Is there a God? Where are you at on that spiritual spectrum? So the questions are all come from that. And so we sit down, and Eric, the magic of the show is the guest pulls the question. I don't pick the question. So we put the big jar in front of them, and they pull their own question. And the magic of that is the questions are very deep and very personal. There's no softball. There's no what's your favorite color. And we go straight. There's no rapport. The rapport happens off the mic as we set up, but it's straight into it. And so they get questions like, the first question is, what is forgiveness? Who's the person you need to say, I'm sorry to? That one person.
Oh, wow.
So these, when was the last time somebody said, I love you? That could be an easy question. It could be a very painful question. Depends on the person. So it's a magic in that the person chooses their own destiny through the jar. And it's a real thing. The questions do somehow line up with the people quite often. I can see it. There's a real synergy between the jar and the questions and the guest.
What was your process as far as coming up with these questions? Was it like meditation? Was it you came up with all of these questions in advance?
Yeah, because I did end up. The guitar got me back to writing because I wanted to get more songs, and ultimately I finished this book called Dear God, Letters to God, and so it's not a religious book, and I would even question it's spiritual at best, but more human, because those are the topics. It's really about yourself, about your interaction with another human, about humanity, and then about who is that? What is that creator or that higher power? And what is that? What's your relationship there? And how do you look at that? So it was me at my age reflecting on living in a communist country, the biggest Buddhist country, the biggest Muslim country, the largest Hindu country, and the U.S., the largest Christian country. And countries of no faith. So I've lived in the largest spiritual or religious countries, and at the end, I was, as I kind of say, I believed all of it and none of it, all at the same time. Right? By the time I'd finished that round, I was like, I'm super. I'm not sure which one. They all sound good to me, and so I ended up sitting down and writing this book. And really, it's asking God these ideas that I formulated about self, about others, about karma. Is this what karma means? Is this what love? Talk about love. And, I'm asking questions about what is love?
So what are some more examples of questions? So let's say Ted and I are on the Jar podcast. What
are some questions?
In the jar? Ted is dying to answer some of these questions. I just know.
All righty, hold on. I got a couple. Well, I got you won't be able to see too well, but that's a business card I use with a question on it. Whoops. And I'll flip it around. And that's on the backside is my business card. So I have a very unique business card that I share with people. And, as I go around the city and stuff, every waitress that takes care of me, anybody I come in contact with, almost always I ask them, how about a question of the day? Would you like to answer a question of the day? And I tell you what, one person in all this time has said no. He did say no, back up, I'm going to smash you. To be fair, he was very clear. But he's the only person that had any kind of a reaction other than sure. So, Ted, are you ready?
I think so.
I'm just going to go right off the top. I think so. Okay. Whoops, hang on, losing my headphones and everything. When you are in love, do you feel superhuman?
I'm going to pass on that one now. Can I have another one? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
First rule
So
of the jar is there's no pass, my
there's no
friend.
pass. You
There are
can't
no
get.
passes.
See,
If it's difficult to answer, there's a reason.
so Ken, could you ask that question
Yeah.
once again? Make
When
sure
you're in love,
uh-huh.
now we're a little old for love, but not. I have another
Love,
story.
love
I
it.
have a story around that. When you're in love, do you feel superhuman?
Superhuman. I don't know if it's superhuman, but I guess there's all kind of emotions and things, and you kind of you feel a little different than you do, and then I guess when you're around that particular person, you know. So, but I don't know about superhuman. I don't think I can fly or anything like that. I'm not gonna, you know,
All right,
I'm
Eric.
invincible.
All
Has there
right.
been a lesson in your life that's defined who you are?
Ooh, that's a deep question. So let's see. Has there been a lesson in my life that's defined? Um, I'll say. I mean, so we were actually talking about this morning,
Okay.
right? Where um, uh, Toastmasters International, right?
Yes, I love it.
I speak. I would do these contests, and I would get really bummed out if I lost a speech contest. Like I would just like anytime I'm competing in something, it's just like, okay,
Right.
we
I'm
got to
gonna
win,
win.
we got to win,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
I would lose, and I had a mentor who told me, and this mentor had won the contest at the international level, and he told me,
Wow.
he said, you shouldn't focus on winning the contest. You need to focus on really communicating your message in a way that it makes the lives of the people in your audience better, that it really impacts the people in your
Wow.
audience. And if you
Wow.
impact the audience, you by default you may win these
Yeah.
contests, but that's not really where your focus should be. And so that's really
Oh.
defined how I approach business. Whereas I try to set my intention on service, right?
Hmm.
That's the thing, is because I think, in Ted, and we talked about this earlier, I think it comes across when, if your motive is try to sell somebody something, right? That if you're really salesy, that intention comes across, as opposed to
Oh, you
really trying to
feel it.
leave them better
Yeah.
than you found them. So that would be kind of the long answer
I love
to
it.
that very deep
How
question.
It's a deep question, and these are some killer ones in here. How much time do we have? How are we doing on time?
We're fine. We're fine.
Okay, cool. Because I have this. I want to pull back to the significance part. I need about 2 minutes somewhere to come to help wrap up some of the significance
Sure.
part.
Sure.
Okay, Ted, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready, Ken.
Okay.
I feel like I'm one of those games.
I was going to give you I was going to give you one that I knew would make you feel more uncomfortable than the last one, but I'm going to be kind.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see. No, that was not the one. I had it out. Oh boy, that's okay. Here we go. Have you ever lost hope?
I have never lost hope.
Hmm.
Yeah, my
How do you keep it hope alive at a dark time? Because everybody's. It's not like your life couldn't be all spritzers and Sunday, lemon twists, right?
right. Yeah, no, but so my belief in God is always hope.
Mm.
Yeah, so that and as you mentioned earlier, everyone kind of believes what they believe and all of that, but I just think it will be, I could see that you may have a challenge with hope if you don't have a belief that
Yes.
there's, that it's outside of you, right?
Yeah.
If you think it's just you and you're like, oh man, I'm never going to get this done. No matter what I do, this is not going to add up. But then, your belief and in my situation, my belief in God, I know there's always hope, because
Mm.
I believe that He is the one that controls everything. So it's like, okay, so I'm thinking I don't have any hope, and he's like, no, here's some hope. I'm like, oh, there's some hope, and whatever that thing is that will trigger to be like, okay, yeah, this is something that's happening. It's moving in a direction that I didn't think was possible. So
I would
I
say, I
love
mean,
it.
these are great questions, and I can see how this could just go down a lot of different roads.
Yes.
Like, I'm just curious. Um, what are some like the most memorable interviews you've had where you've asked a question and it's gone down an emotional road or unpacked some things that you didn't expect?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I had one yesterday. Like yesterday's a good one because it's just fresh. And I mean, there's so many, Eric. Really, I'd say the ones that are surprising are the hard stories, the emotional stories, right? The ones where they have a story to tell, and that part of the story comes up, and maybe they weren't prepared. Some of the questions get people by surprise because it goes straight into a pain point, right? Sometimes it's right to the heart, and things come up. And the lady yesterday, she bounces out. Now it was not a great neighborhood, um, and it was a modest home. She's renting the place, and it's pretty modest. But she comes bouncing out, lovely lady, full of energy, looks great, takes care of herself. We get down, we start to tell the story, and I mean, she just got out of jail 9 months ago, serving 25 to life.
mm,
Been on the street since she was 13. Foster home this, foster home that, raised grandma. Uh, just trauma, pain, hard life. And, just to get surprised by looking at somebody and then, wow, the story starts unfolding and it's just like, and it was tough stories.
mm,
I had one just similar a couple of days before that. This lady, you would never, you'd stand in line next to her at the grocery store. You'd never know. You'd never know. Um, Never knew why her mom and dad. She got the question about love, and she said, "I don't know because I've never felt love.
mm,
I've never been loved."
mm.
You imagine that? Like that? That's messed up as a human. And it was her mom and dad. The dad was not, dad totally not there for her. Almost, he was the only hope. But the mom was a cold, cold person, and she
Mm,
said never loved me, absolutely. And she, I won't tell the side story, but it's brutal. And the mother was like maybe potentially just completely gone, right, on the planet, but not a human. And when her mom died recently, she found out, her uncle told her after the funeral, as everything was over, she cleaned out her mom's house, had to do all that stuff, and found out she was adopted.
wow.
No one ever told her. And so she figured, that's, my mom never loved me because she didn't want me. The
Mm,
dad was the one who was infertile. So maybe he was the one that wanted a child and the mother never did, or only wanted her own. So you hear these stories, and this is a woman who's, I mean, she's going to live her life out impacted by what happened to her. She
wow.
100% will not recover.
Mm,
She'll never be in a relationship. She'll never, obviously won't be married and won't have kids. Obviously she's older, but she'll never recover from that. And these are people standing next to us in the grocery store. So I think, my message for people is, have some grace out there in the world as we interact with other people. There are people going through stuff you cannot fathom, um, on a human level, what humans can do to each other. So have some grace and, be thankful and grateful for what you have.
mm,
As bad as it is, and I've heard some rough stories. People are still grateful at the end of all of it. They're like, would you change anything about your life? No. And I'm just like, really? Not even that time or that thing? No, that's made me hoop. Oh, I'm strong because of that. No, I learned this for that. And, so people are still grateful. Even people with the hard times are pretty grateful with where they're at and the lessons that life has afforded them. And a lot of people are looking at it. It's the path to your purpose,
mm,
right? I think, Ted, I think these are things you guys would find and Eric, these are things I think for your clients, especially 7-figure clients, right? If you're not have a purpose and you're making 7 figures and you haven't found that purpose, you need to find it, because you're going to wreck your business, or you're going to do something to unwind what you're doing, because you're not in that, as we talked about, you got success, right? But you don't have significance. You might be significantly successful, but you're not making an impact on humanity, on life, and that'll tear at you as successful people. We need to find those things. One of the things that I took a break in December. I'd been on 8 months on the road, 55 cities, and I pretty much didn't have a break. I didn't have any holiday or anything. And one of the things I took away was the mental health crisis, right? How many people are really struggling, or not at the moment, but have struggled in the past, and their experiences through the systems and the treatments that they got, or what are affordable or findable, it was pretty limited. It was pretty surprising. And so I started, I just off, sometimes I use horizon thinking, and sometimes I just go. I'm also,
Right.
I have another, that's a Ken's rule. I have another Ken's rule called momentum. And that's, you know what that means. I mean, you guys are definitely momentum guys. Just do it. Just, go. What do we, don't, if you ask questions, there's a never end. I got 100,000 questions behind me.
Let's go.
I promise you that. Like, if you want to start asking questions about what should we and how should we, what do you think? No, you'll ask that when you're driving. If you it's hard to stop a train once it's moving. I think getting a train moving is kind of hard, but I think once the same pickup truck that pulled the train to start it probably can't stop it. If you think about it, right? A pickup truck could pull it, but it can't stop a train, even when it's under no locomotion. There's just, that Newton guy he was onto something. So I'm a fan of momentum.
You're onto something. So
So anyway,
that's a big key. The reason that people procrastinate, because they don't really understand momentum, right?
Yes.
So once you can't just sit and wait until you have it all figured out. You have to start, right? And then as you start moving, you build momentum, and then some of the answers you think you need start to be revealed to you.
Or you don't even need that. That question's totally irrelevant. And then the questions that need to be answered. Right. When you're moving, you know which are the important. I mean, sometimes they're like pretty serious. Like, you start off the boat and it's like, which sail do we raise? And oh shit, we're going the wrong way. But you definitely know what questions are important very quickly. Quickly. So anyway, it's led me down to forming a nonprofit. I just started a nonprofit company called the JAR Foundation, and I'm using that as a platform to kind of begin nestling in my businesses underneath the foundation. So I'll have a training company to help train. I'll have the podcast kind of ideas. I got a couple podcasts going, so that a training company around mental health for companies, for individuals, mostly for companies probably, and then the podcast. And I'm looking at a couple of other things around maybe fitness and nutrition. The key parts to a strong, good mental health is really around what you eat, what you think, what you feed yourself, right? And how you take care of your body. So I'm, kind of changing really a different purpose, but I think it's more significant, Eric. I think we've come, I really feel like I'm going from success to real significance now, and for the right and I found the right path.
Sure. So this is kind of the perfect time for this next question. So what advice do you have for the entrepreneur who's listening to us now, who, they've had success, they've got the toys, they've made the money, but they feel like something's missing? What steps, what advice do you have for that person that's looking to make that shift to becoming more significant?
Yeah. Start doing some me things that are real. Driving a jet ski is cool, but it's not real, right? Do something real. What is it? I don't know if it's gardening, right? But be a gardener at the level you are. Learn that as a bread making. guitar playing, pick up a musical instruments are great. Pick up a musical instrument because there's tremendous benefits. Get involved with animals, touch the earth, do things like this that are tactile in nature, right? That involve multiple senses. Photography. And I was also into cooking at the time. I started cooking every meal. I started playing guitar. Anything I could do to waken up my brain and get this activity going, and also find a vein of where I could invest my time. And then that paid off. Be intentional about what you're doing, right? I think playtime, we all know what toys are and play toys are and stuff and other stuff that's hard fucking work. Writing is hard freaking work. Sorry, I was just swearing on live. Hard work.
I was getting ready to say, the kid just dropped the.
Did I just drop the F-bomb?
He did it real smooth though too, Eric.
I use them so often. They're like they stir into the soup like beef broth.
No problem. It was funny.
Yeah, so I think for me that's what worked, and I kind of call it. I had built these individual lanes, right? And I had a little momentum. They were intentional. I was being very purposeful. What I was doing, what I was trying. I was trying to become a master at the craft, and if that. I got to a place, okay, jump and ship, try another craft. And very weirdly, those things, today, right now, if I didn't play for multiple years with photography, I couldn't be my own photographer on the road. I wouldn't know how to do this. If I didn't pick up guitar and play, and then now, very embarrassingly, record my own voice and my own music. Okay. I love my music and the words are amazing. It just shouldn't be sung by me. But if I didn't do that, and if I didn't record an album remotely with myself in Vietnam and my teacher in Bangkok, I wouldn't know anything about microphones or sound or setup. Which is key. You can see these are two things sitting right like inches from me, right? This is my whole life. I'm a one-man band on the road. There's nobody else but me. And we create the show. We have great little snippets. I record it on camera. So it's those. So I'd say for these, for the entrepreneurs sitting out there doing these things, it's tough because you got to carve that time out. You got to dedicate. But it leads you somewhere you can't. It leads you to that horizon you can't imagine. Right? It leads you over the place, and you're going. Those things are all kind of headed in this direction, but you may not be able to see where it's going to take you. So there's a little bit of faith in there.
That's a great answer, and I can relate to that because when I was in corporate America, I was successful, but I didn't really feel significant.
Mm-hmm.
I explored the whole public speaking. Now, one thing I knew was that, I like speaking in front of people. I like speaking
I
in
could
church.
talk. I could, yeah.
And, at that time I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to impact these people. I like speaking. And then as I just kept going down that road, it became what it's become today.
Yes. See?
I don't even think the technology for podcasting was around back when I first started doing this. So no, I think that's a great point. You're definitely on to something. I hope the entrepreneurs who are listening wrote that down and were paying attention, because I think that is a key. That's a great insight.
There's one more lesson inside there. With the guitar, when I was going to buy the guitar, I wanted to buy a nice guitar. Mm-hmm. I had a good salary. I got a good bonus. I want to be good to as a good friend, when a barbecue salesman once told me, be good to yourself. So I was good to myself in that guitar shop. But I said, I made a contract with myself. I'm going to give this 2 years because I know it hurts and I know you suck for 2 years. You don't even want to hear yourself the first 2 years, right? You got to get to year 3 before even you'll like take your earplugs out. Forget playing for somebody else. That's 5 years away. Forget that. I just said 2 years, and I'm going to get a teacher, and I will commit. And at the end of the 2 years, if I can look in the mirror and say, you gave it a best shot, you did good, not perfect, not, B plus, C plus is good enough. C, even a B, and then I can put it away. So I made a commitment with myself, and I tell you that got me through some hard times, getting through this first 2 years of a lot of times, a lot of weeks I didn't pick up the guitar. But at the end I knew I had to make it through the 2 years, and it was that last 6 months probably when you start to get better, and I made it through the 2 years. But it's so whatever it is, as an entrepreneur, what you're doing is don't do it half. I didn't do anything I did half-ass. I went hard and tried to become a master at it.
Yes. No, that's great. That's great. So we're coming down to the final segment. It's write this down. And this is where we each go around and give at least one insight from today's episode that the folks that are listening to us would want to write down so they can level up. So Ken, you are our guest of honor for today. What do the people need to write down?
I think those combination, the things that we kind of covered a little bit, and as kind of a whole unit, which is, I've been a big fan of the horizon thinking, and again, taking yourself in a teleportation device into the place where the business you're in. What is the business you're in? Teleport yourself over the field of battle that you can see, a little past the horizon, and then build that future, based on what you can see, 100% in front of you right now, and the 10% in the last mile, you can see clearly. After that, you have to imagine it. You have to build it. But to get there, you have to have momentum. You need to start, right? And get in a lane and go, and take in the data, and how to change, adjust your course and your speed and your intention based on what you see, but start. So if you're thinking of a new plan, if you got a new product line, you got a new thing you want to do, and it's, don't let the questions slow you down. Figure that out later.
No, I think that's great advice. Excellent. So you captured horizon thinking, that momentum. Don't let the questions slow you down. All right. Awesome. All right, Ted.
It's a tough, Ken's a tough act to follow. You know what? For this segment, I guess the point that really resonated the most with me is everything like around gratitude. We talked about that. I always have this saying whenever I'm talking to people, I'm like, everyone has a box, right? And that box has your stuff in it, right? Your stuff could be your financial situation, good or bad, health challenges or your health situation, good or bad, family situation, good or bad, just everything that you're dealing with is in your box. And everyone has a box.
Yep.
Right. I've just come in through life. I said, everyone has a box. Right. And so like when you're speaking to people and you're kind of like, how you doing? Right. I mean, really, if I'm like, okay, Ken, no, really, how are you doing?
How are you doing?
How are you doing? And if you speak to people, that way, ask that question that way, you don't know what you'll get from that. No, I'm really good, or
yeah,
I'm dealing with this, or I'm dealing with
yes.
that, like the situation you spoke of with the individual, like I said, dealt with just all the things that she was dealing with in life, adoption and all that. And so I think that, gratitude, like knowing that everyone has a box, no matter how big you think your box is, someone you'll see, like, you'll be like, man, you see somebody on the side of the road and you're like,
that's a big box.
Let me shut my mouth, because I thought this box was huge. But someone else that you're speaking to will have a box that's even bigger, right? And then you have the gratitude of saying, okay, well, within this box of all these things that are not the greatest, there's a bunch of good stuff in there too, right? Maybe I have a home, I have a family around me that cares for me. I have, I got a couple dollars, may not be as much as I want, but I can have a couple dollars more than some others do.
Yep.
Right. And that all kind of goes all back to even what we're talking about with the whole thing around, the question about hope. Right. So, you're in this situation, you're like, oh man, my situation's not that bad. I have hope that I can get more money. I have hope that whatever health challenge I'm dealing with, I have hope that the job situation will get better and, all that. So I guess, as long as you're still here on earth, you still have hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing for writing this down, because we talk about the box because it creates a visual for people.
I love that. We're all carrying it strapped on our backs, right? We all
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's right. I think, Ted, it's cool, right? Some people's box, we have our own perception of how big our box is, and then we see somebody else's.
Yeah.
My box is pretty small right now.
Yeah. I think all of us are. We look at it and you're like, oh.
Yeah. After this week of interviews, my box, I can't even see it anymore. I tried. I can't see it. I know it's behind me.
You would fight to keep your box. If you look at someone else, let me have you. Like, you want to trade? Nah, I'm good. I'm
very good.
I'm good.
Mr.
Yeah,
Eric.
Great comments by both of you, and I know people just writing crazy, writing like crazy. So my thing is sit around this idea, and we kind of touched on it through this episode, that everybody's dealing with something that you know nothing about. Right. And I think you have to extend a level of grace to people and not just react to what you see on the surface.
Yes.
Right. And that's one of, just like your podcast, Ken, Ted and I have been amazed at some of the stories people have told us and some of the things that they've had to deal with. I mean, there's been like dead spots in some of these shows because Ted and I are just like,
wow. Wow.
You went through what? Or some people are still going through certain things.
Yeah.
So I think, especially, if you have people working for you, if your customers, recognizing that people are really going through things.
Yes.
And just really having that level of grace as you're approaching people can really help with your business and ultimately to improve your life.
I think with your business, if you have that attitude, Eric, out with your customers and onto the floor with your team, man, they'll follow you anywhere.
Absolutely.
They'll follow you anywhere.
It's interesting. I always have this saying that you want to treat every customer as if it's your only customer and every employee as if it's your only employee.
Oh man. Oh my God.
You write that down.
Yeah. Oh, I'm writing that down. Right. Like that's
the value of that customer, right? If you think about that feeling when you got your first customer and you were like, man, like this company has invested in me.
Yeah. Somebody believes in me.
Even if it was $20 a month, you're like, they give me $20 a month. And then as you start getting other contracts, and you're like, man, I remember a time. It's not even about the amount. It's about that someone is willing to spend it on you and let you provide those services. Or employees they can go to so many companies, but those that decide to join you and stick with you through the good times and the bad times. I mean, it's pretty amazing thing.
Oh, for sure. So Ken, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Super simple. Thejar.live. So it's just traditional www, thejar.live, and just go there and you can find YouTube channel. We got some cool videos back in the day. We got some of the mental health stuff is up there. We've got the podcast for both Spotify. You got all the links are there for everything we're doing. There's also if your listeners go and put their email in. So if you go and you register, we get a registered email. You get a link to 3 chapters of my book. So you get a free piece of the book. You get a taste, and it's and for me it's it's one of my favorite. It's yesterday's, today's, and tomorrow's. I kind of nicknamed it the battlefield of your mind. And I just explore, asking God, what is the past and what's the present? What's the future? What's that all about? And I just play around with my own ideas and thoughts. And I have a feeling I'm not so dissimilar than a lot of people.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's the way and it's just a great chat. And I love the way you guys interact as co-hosts. This is great.
Well, thank you
great
so
setup.
much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this is and I just think there's a lot of value because we ask people questions all the time, right? It's great value on an episode when the guest is hitting us with questions, especially powerful questions like the ones you were asking.
Oh man, you made me think.
There were a couple more in here we missed. Let's see. I'll throw them out just for the audience. They can answer them at home. Should we have blind faith? I think we had that one. Do you believe in yourself? Is it possible to have faith and doubt at the same time? There was one more in here I really liked. Sorry, hang on. Yeah. Do you keep a daily to-do list? And this has been the most this is for us three, right? But you'd be surprised at the number of people that wake up every day and wing it.
Oh yeah, that's the majority of the population.
I was like, wait, what? You're like, what do you do in the morning? Well, just kind of
a little of this, a little of that. Yeah.
I was in corporate world way too long.
Oh yeah.
You really know you've made it in corporate life when you don't need a to-do list. You just have two secretaries, and basically from 8:30 until about 6. You just, you don't need to think. They're just going to be an endless stream of meetings and decisions you have to make, and someone's organized everything for you.
Everything for you.
Your day's already set up.
That's funny. I've never been able to get with like giving someone my calendar and controlling it. Like I just can't. I can't do it. I just couldn't imagine.
If you end up in a for also partly was I was in foreign countries where you don't speak the language of local people. But ultimately, if you end up in a complex enough organization, it's truly the only way.
Wow,
you can't manage a schedule by yourself.
Yeah,
wow,
it's truly it's impossible. I mean, actually, it's actually impossible. I don't think there's enough time on the planet. And the secretaries run the world, right? They know what meetings have to happen. They know the prioritization. Sure. These decisions has to, and they're coordinating. Secretaries are the one of the best things ever invented. They run the company, and other executives make decisions. But secretaries run the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
no, I agree with that.
That's probably why they use the phrase executive assistant.
Yeah.
Use secretary now.
It's an executive assistant. Actually, you could fire all the executives and just let the EAs run the company because they already know the whole cycle. They know the budget system. They know how the budgets work. They know the HR they can do all the HR reviews. It's literally
everything.
Literally, you could get rid of the executives, save a butt ton of money, and just use the EAs.
That's right.
Absolutely. But now those are some great questions that you posed. Which really made this episode unique. So definitely, those of you just joining us now, you definitely want to hit the rewind button and go back and listen to all the nuggets that Ken shared, and you'll be poised to make that shift from success to significance. Like he did. And don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. We're at how many downloads, Eric?
Oh man, so we're at 809,000 total downloads.
Oh, are you almost at 1 million?
Wow, we're almost at 1 million, man.
I got mad respect for that.
It is amazing. It is amazing. And just to think about where we started back in 2019, we were winging it. We said, let's just go out there and get it started and just start moving with it. And we were recording every week and bringing on anyone that we knew that would let us interview them. And now we got great guests. Not that they weren't great guests, right? But we got great guests now that we didn't know
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
just people that you're at begging them to just, give me a favor and show up.
Come on, can you do it again, buddy? Look, man, we just did a month ago. You don't have anyone else?
No.
No. Yeah.
Oh,
Great.
I mean, that's you guys. That is a really, that's really I mean, that's got to be less than 1% of the podcasts ever put together hit 1 million, and
Man,
you're going to get there.
excited. We're excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to those in the audience who've listened,
Man.
you've shared the show, you've subscribed.
Absolutely.
We definitely couldn't do it without you.
No
Definitely
way.
appreciate that.
No way. This is great.
All right. So again, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those places to download this episode and other episodes. That is our time for this week on the 30-minute hour. Thank you again to Ken Stearns for everything he shared. Much appreciated. And until next time, have a great one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.